Russian troops near Chasiv Yar in the Donetsk region are actively using the pipes of the Seversky Donetsk-Donbass Canal to accumulate troops there under cover of fog to break through the city's defenses. As for the situation in Chasiv Yar, the enemy is actively using the pipes of the Seversky Donets Canal to take cover during bad weather. Now in the Donetsk region we often see fog in the morning, and the enemy is actively using this period of time to accumulate in these pipes, and then, if possible, move deeper into the city in the morning or at night, said Speaker of the OTG, Lugansk, Dmitry Zaporozhets. According to the speaker, Ukrainian UAV operators are recording the movement of enemy troops and are trying to strike them. Zaporozhets noted that the Ukrainian positions near Chasovy Yar are becoming fewer and fewer, but the city is still held by the Ukrainian Armed Forces. The enemy is present everywhere and is looking for ways to penetrate the city under cover of bad weather. In the period 04-08 January 2025, the Defense Forces of Ukraine recorded enemy activity in the area of pipes of the Seversky Donets Canal. On January 4, the movement of more than 100 occupants was recorded. According to the available information, they were installed in the collector for future storm operations in the direction of Seversky Yar. On January 9, an airstrike was carried out at the enemy's concentration point. The opponents suffered losses, probably up to 100 people. During 2 days after the impact, there was no movement near the pipes and the collector. On January 21, the occupiers organized a fire in the collector, probably in order to hide the traces of the destruction of such a large number of personnel and to avoid evacuation measures. The smoke and fire continued for about 5 hours.
Ukraine wanted to demonstrate that North Korean troops were fighting Russian soldiers against it. It took a high-stakes mission to prove it. As a result of this operation, the Ukrainians got convincing proof. They captured their first North Korean soldier. The Wall Street Journal revealed details of the Ukrainian mission. That day, Ukrainian special forces came across a wounded North Korean soldier lying in a forest in the Kursk region of Russia. Noticing them, the young soldier began threatening them with a grenade, holding it in his hand. The commander of the Ukrainian group, a captain with the call sign Green, tried to calm him down by addressing him with a few phrases in Korean that he had learned for such occasions. "Brother, it's okay," Green said, then added in Russian, "It's okay, I'm helping." The Ukrainian military was trying to take the soldier prisoner. Until now, not one of the thousands of North Koreans fighting on Russia's side had been captured alive. Some chose death rather than surrender, while others were killed by their comrades to avoid capture, the Ukrainian military said. Ukrainian officials say North Korea's involvement in the war is evidence of its globalization. Kyiv estimates that Russia has deployed about 12,000 North Korean troops to the Kursk region since December. The North Koreans, who have been fighting mostly infantry attacks without armored support, have shown high motivation despite suffering significant casualties. Documents found on dead North Korean soldiers attest to their discipline and willingness to sacrifice, but they also point to Russian efforts to conceal the North Koreans' presence. Green's team carefully prepared the operation to capture the prisoner. On January the 9th, after making their way through a minefield, they set up an ambush that resulted in the discovery and encirclement of the wounded soldier. At first he resisted and held a grenade in his hand. Green gestured to him, and the North Korean eventually handed over the weapon. "We treated him like a child. We didn't want him to hurt himself," Green said. The Ukrainians began transporting the prisoner through the minefield when Russian artillery began to shell heavily. The Russians used every resource they had at that point just to get rid of both the Koreans and us, Green said. The captured 20-year-old shooter claimed he did not know where he was and that he was fighting against Ukraine. During interrogation, he asked if Ukrainians were good people and, when he heard an affirmative answer, said, "I want to live here." Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenski announced the capture of 2 North Koreans and offered to exchange them for Ukrainian prisoners of war in Russia. The capture of the North Koreans will provide valuable information about their training, life in North Korea, and role in the war. They are living proof of North Korea's illegal participation in Russia's war, said Lee Sung-min, director of the Human Rights Foundation's Korea office. At a ceremony in Kyiv, Zelensky awarded medals to the special forces who took part in the risky operation. In a desperate bid to break through Ukraine's well-protected defense line in front of Seversk, Russian forces launched a massive assault using 50 motorcycles and light vehicles. Ukrainian defenders managed to adapt quickly and deal significant damage to this enemy attempt. Euromaidan press says that the Russian goal here is to penetrate the heavily fortified Vyimka-Zvanivka defensive belt, which serves as a critical shield for Seversk, preventing Russian forces from making any meaningful advances in the region. Having exhausted almost every other attack vector in the Seversk direction with little success, Russian commanders saw that this untouched sector as their only remaining option for a major push, even if it is very well protected. The Vyimka-Zvanivka line is the gateway to Seversk, and breaching it would allow Russian forces to pressure Ukrainian defenders, paving the way for deeper advances. However, previous mechanized assaults in the Seversk direction were disastrous, costing Russians an entire army of tanks and vehicles. The sheer scale of Russian losses forced the removal of Colonel General Gennady Anashkin after reports surfaced that his officers had submitted false battlefield reports to the Russian High Command, where they exaggerated their progress. With new leadership, Russian commanders are trying a completely different approach, shifting away from traditional armor-heavy offensives to fast-moving light vehicle attacks. To avoid repeating past failures, Russian forces abandoned large armored columns and relied on motorcycles and ATVs for maneuverability. Their strategy revolved around speed, unpredictability, and overwhelming Ukrainian defenses before they could react. By launching rapid successive assaults, Russian troops hoped to bypass Ukraine's artillery kill zones and force a breakthrough. The motorcycles' ability to navigate rough terrain and evade FPV drone strikes also played into their tactical planning. Euromaidan press says that Russia's logistics in the sector remain relatively efficient, enabling a steady flow of reinforcements and allowing them to sustain high-tempo assaults, giving Ukrainians very little time to detect them. However, the almost total absence of armored protection proved to be a crucial weakness. Once the attack was detected, Ukrainian forces swiftly exploited these vulnerabilities. The lightly armored vehicles offered no defense, leaving Russian troops completely exposed to drone strikes, artillery fire, and machine guns. Despite their speed and maneuverability, the Russian assault was swiftly intercepted. Ukrainian defenders from the 10th Mountain Assault Brigade, Edelweiss, maintained constant drone surveillance despite the previous low intensity of combat engagements, enabling an almost immediate response. The hilly terrain with 3 lines provided some advantage to the Russians, allowing Ukrainian forces to efficiently target them as they crested the hill.